Kento stood at the door with Satoru and Suguru. They were picking up Saelah, but she hadn't come to the door yet, and they'd been waiting almost a minute. He couldn't hear any sounds from inside. His first thought was that she stepped out, but she knew they were coming, and if she needed to go out for a bit, she would have informed them. "I'm going to call her," Suguru announced, bringing his phone to his ear. He was putting it away a minute later when there was no answer. "Maybe something happened," Satoru stated. "She would have let us know if it had," Suguru replied. "Unless it was an emergency and she couldn't. Call Denny, Satoru," Kento instructed. The older alpha called, putting the phone on speaker. "Hey, Satoru, what's up?" Denny asked, picking up after the third ring. "Hey, do you know if Saelah left her apartment? We had a date scheduled, but she doesn't seem to be here. She was there when I left, but she was in her bedroom lying down. She wasn't feeling great yesterday, and it didn't seem to be better today," Denny replied. "I'm covering a shift for someone today, but the door code is 5309. Please check in on her and let me know how she's doing." "I will," Satoru agreed as Kento keyed in the code. Immediately upon entering the apartment, they're struck by the scent. Warm, sweet, delicious. Kento hardened immediately. A deep rumble started not only in his chest, but the other two, as their arousal blended into the air. He licked his lips and swore he could taste it. "So we were right," Satoru said, voice deep like gravel with the effects. "Smells that way," Suguru responded, voice sounding the same. They changed into their slippers and headed down the hall to her room. The door was closed, and Kento knocked. They waited for her to call them in, and when they didn't receive a response, he opened the door. The scent hit them heavier, and Kento's alpha was scratching at the surface, eager to get to what awaited them. However, he calmed himself and approached the bed where she lay curled under the comforter. He gently pulled it from her face and placed his palm against her forehead. She was feverish, as he suspected she would be. Saelah released a soft whimper, but moved closer to him as he sat on the edge of the bed and stroked her cheek. "How long do you think she's been like this?" Suguru asked. "Denny said she didn't feel well yesterday," Satoru said. "But he would have known what was happening if he had been here when she truly started. So likely only a couple of hours," Kento replied. "Call Denny back and let him know what's happening. Tell him we're taking her with us," Suguru added. "Should we?" Kento asked as the oldest alpha pulled out his phone to make the call. "We shouldn't leave her here alone, and we don't have the right things here to take care of her," Suguru replied. "We also have an obligation as the alpha escorting her," Kento agreed. He also doubted she had the basic essentials to help herself through what was happening since she didn't know. Kento removed the comforter from her and stood, picking her up. Saelah immediately burrowed her face into his neck, seeking the source of his scent. Denny didn't answer, but I'll send him a text. "Should we pack her some things?" Satoru asked. "I don't think we should rifle through her personal things," Kento stated. "We can ask Denny to pack for her and drop them off at your condo when he has the chance," Satoru, Suguru said. Going to Satoru's made the most sense. It was large enough to house them comfortably, with enough bedrooms for each of them, but he and Suguru also had clothes and other belongings already there. "We will take the blanket at the end of the bed," Kento said. Her scent would fill Suguru's condo, but he wanted them to at least take something with them until Denny could bring her other items. Suguru grabbed the blanket while Satoru grabbed her phone from the nightstand, and they exited her bedroom. They changed back into their shoes and grabbed a pair for her before exiting the apartment, ensuring the door locked behind them. Kento sat in the backseat with Saelah. She was only half conscious, and when he tried to sit her beside him, she whined and held onto him tightly. So, as unsafe as it was, he kept her in his lap. She nuzzled into his neck for several minutes of the ride before she started kissing and licking the gland subconsciously. Her sweetness thickened in the car, and it only served to increase the arousal the three of them felt. In the small space of the enclosed vehicle, it felt as if he was bathing in a sea of arousal, and his alpha was demanding he claim, satiate. The ride felt much longer than it was, and when they arrived at Satoru's, Kento took her into the guest bedroom she stayed in the previous time. He laid her on the bed, and when he tried to pull away, she whined, clinging to him tighter. To appease her, he grabbed the other pillow and scented it heavily, handing it to her. Satoru and Suguru scented the blanket, and Suguru laid it over her before the three left the room. Kento went to his room and grabbed a few of his shirts from the dresser. He scented them before taking them back into the other bedroom and placed them beside Saelah. He was exiting again when Suguru returned with a few articles of clothing and a bottle of water. Kento went into the living room and took a seat, willing his arousal to subside. The other two joined him several minutes later. "Denny will bring her things on his break in an hour," Satoru said. "Until then, should we help?" "No. We didn't discuss it beforehand, and she can't truly consent in the state she's in. We need to wait for a moment of clarity," Kento replied. "You think she'll have one without getting what she needs?" Suguru questioned with a raised brow. "Hopefully," Kento responded. "I don't have enough easy food for her to eat. I'm going to run to the store and get a few things. Remember that Denny will be here on his break in case I'm not back," Satoru informed. Kento nodded as he pulled his phone from his pocket. He sent a text to his receptionist to let her know he wouldn't be in the office for the next few days and asked her to reschedule his appointments. He put his phone away, picked up the remote, and leaned back on the couch as they waited for Denny to arrive. Suguru opened the door for Denny and allowed the other man inside, giving him a pair of guest slippers before taking the suitcase he held from him. "I packed her some essentials, but she might not need much of it in this state. I almost couldn't believe the text Satoru sent me, but when I walked into the apartment, it couldn't be denied," Denny said. "I'm wondering how she didn't know," Suguru stated. "Or better yet, how didn't you? You work in the hospital." I'm a pharmacist. I know medications. Besides, she has canines and her first cycle was a rut, or at least that's what they thought it was. It was the same as almost every woman in her family and several others I know. And back home, we've always considered them alphas since they have more alpha qualities. Are you telling us that dominant omegas are in abundance where you're from? Kento asked from his spot on the couch as Suguru and Denny stood just past the entryway. Is that what you call them? Denny asked. It must be a difference in culture as to why we refer to them as alphas and you don't. Wait, you said her first one. Does that mean she hasn't had one since? Kento asked. No, she's been on some heavy-duty suppressants since then, but they didn't get delivered recently, and we had to find her some substitutes, but they were nowhere near as strong. It probably also doesn't help that she's been surrounded by 3' alpha pheromones. So this might be difficult for her, Suguru said. It could, but at least she has the 3 of you to help her through it, Danny responded, because honestly, it might exhaust just one of you. We've decided not to assist until she can consent, Kento replied, and Suguru knew she likely wouldn't be able to, especially since this sounded like it would only be her second cycle. Denny seemed to have a conversation with himself before pulling out his phone. He fiddled with it for a moment before handing it to Suguru. She's going to kill me for showing you this, but she likely won't be able to consent the way you want her to. You can take this as proof that she would ride you into the sunset when she's clear-headed, so giving her what she needs now would not upset her after the fact. Suguru read through some messages and he found himself smirking at the screen from one in particular that was about him, and her desire to grip his hair as he buried his head between her thighs. He passed the phone back to Denny. We'll take care of her, he assured the other man. I know you will. I should get going. My break is over in 10 minutes and I'll likely be late getting back. Call me if you need me to bring her anything else, and when she has a moment of clarity, have her text or call me. Oh, and there's birth control in the bag. I take it whatever you saw made you feel fine with helping her, Kento said once Denny had left. It did, and considering she wants to ride Satoru until her thighs hurt and listen to you whisper salacious things in that deep voice of yours while you give her deep strokes should give you the peace of mind you need. And no, I'm not paraphrasing, Suguru replied with a smirk. The younger alpha cursed under his breath, and Suguru couldn't blame him because the mental images that flashed in his own mind did nothing for the hardened state he'd been in since they picked her up. Suguru took the suitcase into the bedroom and placed it beside the closet. He approached the bed and checked Saelah. She was still sleeping, which, now that he knew it was only her second cycle, made sense, especially since it had been so long since she had had one. Her body likely felt like it was the first all over again, which meant, as delicious and tempting as she smelled, this was still only preheat. A dominant omega, a secondary gender that was so rare in Japan that not even 0.1% of the population boasted it. Yet, it seemed all too common where she was from. He'd suspected for some time that might have been the case. Her responding to his alpha command the way she did, and well, she'd been pressed against him more than a few times, had even straddled him when she'd been aroused last week, and she lacked a very crucial part that most female alphas had. But Denny was right. Things varied by culture, and she did have more alpha traits than she did omega ones. Her scent wasn't as sweet as an omega's, but it also wasn't as overpowering as an alpha's could be, though it could overpower an omega's. She had canines, which omegas did not, and there weren't any scent glands on her thighs. At least, Suguru didn't think there were. Either way, alpha or omega, they didn't care. They hadn't chosen to court her because of her secondary gender, but because they liked her, because she blended well with them, felt like a piece that was always destined to fit. Suguru ran his thumb along her cheek before leaving her to rest. He knew she would awaken when she went into full heat, and she wouldn't get much rest once it had, until it began to ebb away in a couple of days, maybe more, depending on how long the cycle lasted. He was coming down the hall as Satoru walked through the front door, bags in hand. He and Kento joined him in the kitchen to help put away everything he'd bought. Denny came by, Kento informed. When Saelah wakes up, we'll feed her first, then help her through her heat. I've taken the next few days off. Same, Suguru replied while Satoru simultaneously said me too. I think we should hold off on nodding her though, Kento said, and Suguru lifted a brow at him. I get you're trying to make sure we don't overstep, but she won't truly be satisfied if we don't, Satoru replied. I know that, Kento started, but she'll come out of the haze long enough to consent to be nodded once she's come a few times. Suguru nodded in understanding. Kento wasn't saying not to nod her at all, but to wait until the haze had cleared enough to give them consent to do so. Sure, he'd seen where her desires towards them lay, but nothing in the messages she'd sent Denny said anything about them nodding her. Whether that was because an alpha, male or female, taking an alpha nod was painful and she had thought she was an alpha, or because that was something she hadn't even thought of, he wasn't sure, but it was better to let her tell them and follow her lead.